you can have as many inkjet machines you ever want in the world, but if you don't have ink, they don't work, right? And I'm here with Marc from Kao Chimigraf.
Kao Chimigraf, yeah.
And Marc, pleasure to see you. And you have some quite exciting things to show us today. But before we see some of the fantastic stuff you do, you are an ink manufacturer out of, was it from Spain or?
From Spain. So in my case, we're based from Spain, but we are part of Kao Group, which is a Japanese group having like based in Japan, America, and Spain. And I'm part of a Barcelona office. Mm-hmm. So yeah. We wouldn't like, let's say, only consider ourselves as an ink manufacturer, but a chemical manufacturer. So
okay, so you do many different things.
Yeah. Quite a few, yeah.
And you know, I can't help thinking about this. Sometimes when people think about chemistry, they always think, oh, it's so dangerous. But chemistry is surrounding us in all parts of life. It's from toothpaste to inks to anything we work with, right?
Yeah, that's true, and that's something we have to, let's say, it's not the same chemistry we used like 20 or 30 years ago, like the one we are using right now. Let's say, at least in Europe, we are, let's say, the reference on let's say, ecology and good chemicals. Let's consider it, and we're always ahead on that, and we have to be, let's say, consistent on the development, not only on the development, but also on regulatory issues.
When we spoke before, I mean, I saw on your title that you are specialist in inkjet. So even though you are a large chemical company, you have the specialty of inkjet.
Yes.
If you look at I mean, everybody's talking inkjet these days, so it must be a great opportunity also for ink manufacturers to be part of. But if you look at ink in inkjet devices compared to, let's say, regular ink, what are the biggest challenges?
On the inkjet, let's say, it's not only you make a fluid that has to print, it's you have to build the entire ecosystem. So we tend to work very closely to printhead manufacturers. That's the reason we are here on the Seiko Open Week, as well as with machine manufacturers and converters or end users. So it's not only about the chemistry of making the fluid or the pigment dispersion itself. So it's like you have to be very careful on the printhead you're using because the chemistry needs to be compatible, needs to have the proper jetting conditions, and mostly when we are talking about industrial single pass machines, as well as it needs to have the end customer requirements. So that's, let's say, the most difficult thing when developing an inkjet ink.
I can't help thinking about because we have not been there so much, but just behind you, you see the wooden boxes, and if you just look at that, I guess that anybody who works with anything that relates to print on a wooden surface is entirely different from a plastic, from on a brick to on a tile to on anything, right? So that is when you talk about the properties of the ink is basically for the application. You need to have something that the durability. I take that also the sustainability agenda is important for in the inkjet space. I mean, is that right? You understood?
Yeah, that's totally right. So indeed, for each, what we have been specialized, let's say, on making specialized developments for each, like, let's say, application. So for example, it's not the same requirements that a wood manufacturer would have. Like, it's just, I want a bright color, I want it sustainable and to last as much as possible, as a corrugated company would have, as well as the company who is printing on corrugated but only wants to print a barcode. That the only requirement is, I want it to be readable. So it very varies a lot. So you have to, as an ink manufacturer, you need to have like as much wide possibilities in chemistry-wise as possible.
And I can't help think about, because also just before we turn on the camera, you said that we basically have inks everywhere in this facility today. And it's funny because when you talk about inks, I think that most that works with ink in the printing industry, they think of ink that comes down to a substrate, right? But you have over there, you have something that prints on the side. You have something that prints up. You have UV, and you have I mean the security thing. I mean all the possibilities comes down to, of course, the printhead, but maybe more importantly with these kind of technologies, the ink, right? Because the application that you and the technology applying this is it needs the right chemistry, right?
Yeah, no, that's totally true. So it's not the same as let's say developing an ink, like as you said, printing horizontally or vertically, and it couldn't be the same. For example, in that case, we are showing an LED technology. So you also need to be very careful on the how the ink needs to be not curing when the sunlight is applying. So since the printhead is downward,
but that would be nice to have control on it,
for example.
Yeah.
So yeah, you have to be like very very careful on when developing new inks for new applications.
I actually yesterday wrote an article, not related to this particular, but I wrote an article about that, and coming here, I realized I was totally wrong, so I had to change it, right? But I wrote that if you look at inkjet, if you look at commercial inkjet, if you look at label printing, it's typically 4, 6, or 7 color, maybe plus white applications that you typically have. But basically, there's way more to it. I mean, you have the UV thing here for security, and in a moment, we're going to see something that is really unique because you have an ink that, when it applies to the surface, it looks really dark black, but after like 30, 40 seconds, it becomes a mirror, right?
Yeah.
So just before you say something about that, I was just wondering, do you see there is also, from an ink manufacturer perspective, a huge interest and potential in doing totally new types of inks in relating to inkjet?
Yes, and that's something I would encourage not only us but everyone to do, because it's like sometimes we just tend to think about the volume and not specific niche applications or making the life of our customers, which at the end are machine manufacturers and therefore will be the end users, to have much more possibilities to introduce the inkjet on that. So that's why we, for example, are presenting right now the fluorescent ink, which can be used either for security.
Tell us a little bit about it. We can show about it, and then we can see what it is.
Yeah, so that's basically an LED curing ink. So it's totally transparent, and it has a pigment which is reacting to certain wavelengths. In that case, we're talking about a wavelength of 254 and 365. And we are commonly selling it for security applications, so as it can be a lottery tickets, or we are also thinking on labeling. That's why we're showing labels for embellishment. Like who knows if you want to print something that will be displayed in a disco, for example. Something that's very, very bright. And on the other side, we were talking about this new ink that maybe I will be.
Should we go and see it?
Maybe, yeah, but
I
realized one thing that
please.
we have one version here. So basically,
what is this? That is nothing.
That's
to do
a conductive silvering. So basically,
so that is printed electronics.
Yes.
Using
that's
your
the
inks?
same technology. That's the same technology I will be showing you right now.
So this is the silver that has conductivity
Exactly.
built into it. So it's not just the mirror; it's also.
That would be the second version.
That's
So
the
let's
second
say that's coming from not from the ink side of Kao. That's coming from the chemical part of Kao. Okay. So the chemical side in Japan developed a new way of redispersing the silver, which is whenever you apply the silver, the thin layer, it's like breaking up, like coming down, and it's making a very smooth and very smooth surface. So it's making this conductivity effect. So there is no stopping on the conductivity. That was, let's say, the first development. It also has other properties like it sinters at a low temperature, which is
needed. Yeah, of course, yeah.
And the other ink that they develop is silver ink for decorative purposes, which I would be really glad to show you right now.
Before we go there, I have just one question about this: the density or the condensed of the electronics here. Does that only come down to the size of the printhead? So I mean, basically, if you had like 10,000 dpi, you could print really fine electronics on this, or is it also?
Yeah, you might need a high discharge of ink.
Yeah.
So we think like a printhead, maybe like the RC1536 would be really good to print this kind of printed electronics. You might have a good layer on it.
And this application, is that widely spread out in the market now, or is it still like in the beginning? Or?
So we are quite new on it. So we are looking for new partners, basically integrators or OEMs that would want to, let's say, promote this.
Yeah.
We have had some tests recently with very good results, printed on PVC cards, for example. And it was pretty optimistic, really, because it opens a bunch of applications.
I have been reading and writing so much about printed electronics, but it's the first time I see it, so I'm very curious about it. So it's totally cool. So let's go and see, because I mean, basically, let me see here. You have, this is just it's just basically a pen, right? So
take care, because maybe it's going to leak a little bit.
You do it. You have already destroyed your shirt.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's more like a pen where you just have the sample of the ink inside it, right?
Yeah, so we have the same ink that's being applied on a printhead here in the pen, and we can show you like the effects is.
Yeah. And you you got it on your hands. I don't hope it's too dangerous, that chemical.
No, it's not. Just pure silver. Huh?
Pure silver. Oh, okay. So you put it on the glass here.
Yeah. So we're making 3 rows just so you can see it. Sorry. So now slowly we'll start.
You could actually write INKISH, couldn't you?
INKISH, yeah.
I mean, we need to promote ourselves a little bit from time to time, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And now you saw our...
But in your case, it's not necessary because you have a really nice product.
Oh, you just show a very nice product too, right? So fantastic. Super. So basically, how long time does it take to cure?
So in ambient temperature, I would say like 30 seconds.
It's already starting to...
Yeah, it's starting already, so you can see the effect. It takes like 30 seconds, I would say.
Yeah.
You can apply some air and it will accelerate it. But it's somehow hypnotic to see it drying and starting to get like a mirror.
I mean, as I said to you before, it's like magic to me because when you see something that is black and then it turns like this, and when you develop this, of course you can see this now on glass. But is it for what kind of applications have you in mind for this kind of?
So basically, everyone that wants to do embellishment, whether it can be labels, it can be hard surfaces, whatsoever. Our customers can imagine, so we're open to it. The only thing we would recommend is, let's say, to always keep the mind open to it. It's.
But I mean, it must be. Did you? I mean, was it when you started developing this? Was it because of a specific request, or was it okay?
No,
we want to show off.
No. We have crazy chemists in Japan.
Okay.
Like most of. The biggest investment of Kao in the company, so it's not new facilities, it's R&D. So we are a company that all the revenue we get, most of it we invested on new R&Ds. And one of the ideas they had was to develop this pigment dispersion or silver dispersion and see if they could make an ink. And finally they came by with this really nice
totally
product.
Cool. And I mean, it's a showstopper. Whenever you show it, people must be like, whoa, right?
Exactly, and that's also opening the doors for the new customers to see, like, okay, if you have this kind of ink, why are not you able to produce other types of ink? So,
and when you have an ink like this, does it require like UV drying, or is it just like?
No, it's maybe some slightly hot air, but not too much temperature.
Okay, so that basically means that this could go to both flexo print and digital, or is it only for digital?
Now we are promoting it for digital.
Okay.
Because let's say there is also the work behind of making the particle size very small.
Yeah.
So all this work for an analog press might not be, let's say, price worth it.
Okay.
Maybe.
But now you can just print your own silver bar, so that doesn't matter, right?
Yeah.
Fantastic. Last question here, Marc. When you look at your company and the market, who do you address and why should people buy from you?
Okay, so we basically have at Kao 2 different business lines. So we have the analog also, which we address directly to printers. And then on the digital side, we address directly to machine manufacturers, as well as we cooperate with all the printhead manufacturers. So that's, let's say, if we compare to other ink manufacturers or fluid manufacturers, the difference we offer is we already know the market. So we have the experience from the end user. We have the experience from the machine manufacturer. And one thing I forgot to tell you, so Kao is not only a chemical company, like it can be for industrial applications. It's a chemical, like cosmetic brand, like really famous in Japan.
Okay.
So we also have the knowledge or the experience on the brand owners. So we are quite aware of the needs from everyone in the, let's say, supply chain of products. And that's what we want to, let's say, address to the market and show the people we can know.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great
it was a
talking to you.
pleasure.
Likewise.